Wildfires like this are getting more and more common. Extreme drought and climate change create the perfect conditions for fire to rip through a forest. But there are other factors at play here too.
When a forest hasn't had a wildfire for a long time, detritus builds up on the forest floor, branches, bushes, and that's described by experts as fuel. It can supercharge a wildfire.
Angela works for Cal Fire and is in charge of 27,000 acres of trees near Santa Cruz. Her team is removing the fuel on the forest floor. Every year, much of this material is burnt, sending carbon dioxide into the atmosphere.
Really, the only options that we have at this point is to either chip it or burn it in piles or broadcast burn it. Ideally, there would be a better use, yeah.
That's the problem San Francisco startup Charm Industrial is trying to solve by turning unwanted biomass into oil and pumping it back into the ground. The idea is actually pretty simple. Unwanted biomass, which could be from a forest or a farmer's field, is pulverized into dust and then pellets. It's then heated up to 500 degrees without oxygen. The process turns the biomass into this, oil, a process we sadly weren't allowed to film. Kelly Kinetic is the company's co-founder.
One of the kind of breakthroughs we had as a company was that it's really valuable for its carbon content and not necessarily its energy content. So if we inject this underground, similar to the way that you inject CO2 or other liquids, then that is removing carbon from the biosphere.
So how do you pump this thousands of feet underground?
So actually this is similar to just reverse oil drilling. So you can take the same sort of infrastructure of pumps and filters and injection pieces to pump it back underground and just refill similar wells.
Charm Industrial hopes to make money by convincing companies to pay them in the form of carbon credits to sequester the carbon underground. The financial services company Stripe has already paid Charm to offset more than 400 tons of carbon. Microsoft is also working with the company. But the big problem here is cost and scale. Using this process to offset carbon emissions, a return flight from London to New York, for example, currently costs nearly $4,000. Sean Kinetic is Charm's chief scientist.
This process is expensive. It's $600 per ton. That's not economical, is it?
Absolutely not. I think that the price point of carbon removal is difficult for permanent removals.
Sean argues that although other types of carbon offsetting are much cheaper, this method produces permanent carbon removal.
When we put it underground, it will remain underground for 10,000 years versus a tree that's planted, which may extract carbon for 100 years but then decay.
We put Charm's idea to two climate change experts. First, Mike McGurk from the Colorado School of Mines.
I think this concept is conceptually very powerful. It just comes down to efficiency and cost. And unfortunately, that's not unique to them whatsoever. Is that when it comes to carbon capture, the questions have always been efficiency and cost.
And then the carbon removal expert, Robert Hogland.
From what we're seeing and how they're approaching it, they're doing it in a very responsible and safe way. So that you're taking carbon and you're actually storing it permanently. I would say there's very little doubt about that. It's solid tons. The question is more, is this a pathway that we want to see on a very large scale?
Charm wants to build thousands of these units on farms, in forests. They have lofty ambitions. However, Angela has heard grand ideas like this before, but she's not convinced.
I think sort of the smaller scale, portable type of operations would be very useful in the Santa Cruz Mountain. I'm hopeful that something will happen soon.
You sound slightly skeptical.
Yeah, I probably do.
For now, all this unwanted biomass will either rot or be burnt. Perhaps one day though, if Charm Industrial succeeds in its ambition, it will end up deep underground.